Welcome to God with George Ortega. This is episode number 83. I'm recording it on Tuesday, February 16th at 1:14 p.m. Eastern Time. And this is another experiment. I had attended an hour-long Torah class that was very wonderful. It was very pleasant, very interesting. And it was so pleasant that I decided to, rather than moving right to recording this episode, to meditate for 15 minutes, which is a very pleasant meditation. And so that, so I'm curious as to the effect of that. Now, all right, that seemed not to have anything to do with God. Except, I guess, perhaps to explain how God works, that what we do and how we do what we do is always influenced by what we were doing before and how we were feeling before and so many other influences that God uses to motivate us to do certain things or not do certain things. And now we can only ever guess at God's purposes. Actually, when I say that, I don't want to say that categorically, because it seems like sometimes it's very clear to us why God has done something. Many times, though, we can only guess. And it's great to have the understanding that whatever God is doing, she is doing for our benefit out of love. And that's such a powerful understanding to maintain, to teach, for the world to hold, as we monotheists hold. And I know in the Hindus are polytheists, so they have the same kind of feeling, I believe, certainly toward their main god, Brahman, which is kind of like the equivalent of our God in a sense. But to the myriad of other gods, I would imagine that they, although with Hinduism, there might be some like good gods versus evil gods. I'm not sure about that. But then with Buddhism, I was thinking earlier today, I attribute my happiness to Judaism and my peace of mind to Buddhism, because Buddhism isn't necessarily a religion. So the Buddha, he never ventured to speculate about the nature of God or about the nature of the afterlife. He was completely focused on happiness, interestingly. Yeah, I mean, like the Four Noble Truths, meditation. It's about happiness through peace of mind. You make your mind so peaceful, so serene, that with that serenity comes a profound joy. And so I mean, that's kind of interesting that that Buddhists are really good at happiness. I mean, there's a study they did. They hooked up some Buddhist monks to an imaging machine and different groups, and one group was meditating on the vastness of the universe. Another group may have been meditating on their breath, focusing on their breath. A third group was meditating on the concept of compassion, and apparently through this meditation, especially compassion, it evoked great happiness. And again, relative to other people, these Buddhist monks, their brain scans show that when they're in these deep states of meditation, they're in a, what I would refer to as a holy state, holy meaning literally separate, in that they are, most of us, if I get this correctly, we shift between alpha and beta waves, our brain waves, but then there's like gamma and theta, which are higher. And so that's, I just know the basic theory of that. I'm not sure about the technicalities, the details, but the Buddhists, longtime meditators, master meditators, maintain this really, really high state of brain function, of consciousness, really, because that's, the brain is just the biology. And so, like, all right, now I've got to ask myself, well, wait a minute, this show is about God, and I'm talking about Buddhism, which is like, it's not atheistic. They don't say that there is no God. They're non-theistic. They say, maybe there's a God, but maybe there's not a God, but here's how to be really happy. And the other thing is, like, Buddhism is also about virtue, and so is Judaism, of course. So I think every religion is probably fundamentally about virtue. So yeah, so like, why would God have me do that? I guess, again, because we can only ever guess, is that God wants me to present ideas. Maybe the idea that God is manifesting her being, her wisdom, her kindness, her compassion everywhere, within every philosophy, although, well, every good philosophy, I guess, every philosophy that's founded on virtue. And that God is to be found not just in sacred objects, holy books, holy items, holy rituals and prayers, but religious prayers and all, but everywhere, that, like, sitting and just being, doing nothing but being, is exceedingly holy, exceedingly virtuous. It's actually, so now I think I'm getting clearer on why God has had me talk about this. And these, these are thoughts that come to mind. I think I may have read this one also, or maybe initially. Yeah, I think I did read this. Prayer is when we talk to God, and meditations when we listen. And when I first read that, I said, yeah, that absolutely, that makes so much sense, because, like, with prayer, it's not like we're not listening when we pray, but generally we're, like, involved in either, like, praising God for something, or thanking God for something, or asking God for something, whereas, like, when you meditate, you're just like, all right, God, it's like your time, just like this, whatever. And it's interesting because, like, the in order, apparently, because I have a feeling that what makes these Buddhist monks, quote unquote, enlightened, which is really analogous to being a tzaddik in Judaism and a saint in Christianity, that what allows them, this meditative practice, it just allows them to be in touch with God in a very unique way. What's interesting, though, like with meditation, for example, you focus on something like your solar plexus, your breathing, a mantra, body sensations. You can focus on thoughts, on feelings. but there's always an object. You can, actually focus on nothingness also as an object. But what's interesting about meditation and about how it connects us, I believe, very closely to God, even though the Buddhists don't have that perspective, is that the communications from God come as what we, conventionally refer to as distractions from our meditation. We're trying to focus on, a mantra, a sound. And we're saying it over and over in our minds silently. And probably the most masterly meditators, and no, I can't say, I've been meditating for years and years, and I've never experienced, let's say, even 5 minutes of being able to completely focus on my breath, on a sound, without a lot of thoughts coming in. And I have a feeling that that's what happens in meditation, at every level. The quality of the thoughts, or the nature, their character may shift. In other words, like if somebody's much better at focusing on an object for 5, 10, 15 minutes with very few, fewer thoughts coming in. No, I don't know. But what I'm trying to say is that it's so ironic that the communication with God that I believe happens in meditation happens when, as a distraction from this single task of focus. Yeah, all right. So let's, got about 15 minutes left. All right, I want to return to God. Because this is funny, because what I try to do sometimes is do as little preparation for these shows as possible, so that they are as spontaneous and fluid as possible, so that I allow myself to go where my mind leads me, rather than staying to a rigid format that may not work for this particular day, for whatever reasons. To just this is a way of, I suppose, being in the moment, to just hearing God each moment, and voicing one's experiencing one's reality from that. But what I want to say though now is, this is episode number 83, and this isn't a meditative practice. This isn't a formal liturgical prayer that someone else has written, and these prayers are sublimely beautiful often. And this is simply attempting to talk as much and as focused on God as possible for 28 minutes, 5 days a week. And after 83 episodes, I much more frequently and with more connection, as if I were with another person, I've been feeling God's presence, and something happens. For example, I'm trying to work on something, and I can't figure out a certain answer, then I'll be moved to do something or say something or think something or whatever that, just the, there's certain times when you know that you don't have um, the yeah, the answer to whatever it is. It gets a bit more complicated. All right, about 12 minutes left. A bit distracted. All right, so let's explore this. Again, like, what I said about God, this practice, having one feel much closer to God is very true. It's very powerful. And so again, this is only episode 83. And like in our class earlier, the rabbi was mentioning how coming together to read Torah and explore Torah and talk about Torah is brings us, each of us in the group, much closer to God. So it does seem plausible to me and very probable that in many cases and many times that we are closer to God when we're with others than when we're alone. Not, of course, to say that one can't be completely or very close to God alone, because that's Buddhist monks that they stay in, and again, this isn't about God, but it's about this very deeply spiritual, blissful state. But so like the next experiment, I'm going to have my friends Charlie and Andy, God willing, join me starting about 3 weeks. And Andy actually, like, I spoke with him. So like, we're going to try, I mentioned this, we're going to try to do, he's a Messianic Jew. He claims he's Jewish. He says he's not Christian, but he believes that Jesus is the Messiah. I don't get that. but anyway, the thing is, like, he believes that Jesus is God. And I mean, fine, Jesus is God in the same sense you and I are God, because everything is God. But to believe that Jesus, is the God, I mean, like, so anyway, I said to him, listen, if because I'm Jewish, I mean, we don't believe that. I mean, like, Hindus don't believe that, and Buddhists don't believe it. So yeah, we figured out a way to, we proposed just having, trying, excuse me, trying an episode without, I'm going to take like a 5-minute break. Excuse me. All right, if it's maybe 3 minutes later, I'm back. I think I realized what was going on. I'm in this kind of like, what I'm feeling is meaningful train of thought. And I started talking about my friends Charlie and Andy, and this is like surreal because, like, just a bit of background. Back in the 80s, that's when I first discovered that I was Jewish, and I started practicing Orthodox Judaism. And there's a book by Zelig Pliskin, I believe, called Guard Your Tongue. It's based on the works of the Hafetz Chaim. It's about this concept called Lashon Hara, evil tongue, which simply suggests that we're not supposed to talk about people. And the way this book presents it, it doesn't mean that we're not supposed to talk. And let's try to bring God into this. God, according to this book, does not want us to talk about people. apparently for any purpose. In other words, like let's say you go to the movies and you see an acquaintance or a friend, you know, according to this book, it's forbidden by God for you to tell someone, oh, you know, and I was at the theater and I saw this, you know, I saw Joe or Sam or whatever. Um, and and I mean that's so like so and so what explained that again, these whatever we're doing, there are reasons why we're doing or not doing whatever we're doing. So as I was getting distracted, and you know, I was also kind of like getting a bit anxious, you know, just the thought of like, oh, wait a minute, should I be talking about my friends like this? Because then it's been like, you know, it's like 40 years, my God. Uh, but but uh, but that's, you know, that's the more interesting question is how are we to understand that? Because and the reason that, you know, that some of the sages give for this is that, well, you know, let's say you tell someone, you know, I saw, you know, so and so at the movies last night, whatever, right? And you happen to tell someone who this person last night said, well, you know, I'm not feeling all that well. I think I'm gonna stay home. You know, they had some kind of like plan, and it turns out the person at the movie. So like, you know, and that I imagine is what they're trying to avoid. Now it's interesting with this particular instruction, business activity is exempted. In other words, like if you trade with someone, if you buy something from someone and that product apparently is not well made, whatever, or the person is dishonest in their dealings, whatever, then actually I think you're obligated to warn others, to, you know, to advise others. So, but that's, you know, aside from that particular exclusion, you know, I mean, I think talking about other people is, well, that's it. All right. Now I'm remembering um, something I learned that basically there's a saying that the the elite, I don't know how do you describe the noble talk about ideas, the common people talk about people. So which kind of connects with, you know, with this theme of not talking about people, you know, whether good or bad or not. And this is like, so I remember, you know, back in the 80s, you know, because you know, I kind of like thought this was a good thing to do. So there was a while I'm trying to like, you know, relate to people, but not talk about other people, whatever. And it's interesting. All right, so like trying to connect this back to God. There's a lot of instruction from God in the Torah, in the Bible, that eludes us, that we still haven't figured it out, you know, and then like we are figuring out, thanks to me and some of my friends with whom I worked on this, we are figuring out that God's will is the only will, and that this idea that what we do is up to us is just, you know, not borne out by either our experience or our science or our logic or even our theology. You know, if God is omnipotent, all powerful, omniscient, all knowing, omnipresent everywhere, how could God not be how could we do or think or feel or say anything that God is not willing? Again, God is everything. God is all powerful. So anyway, so yes, there's a lot that you know, like this, talking to people. It'd be great to eventually understand, well, what are the circumstances where it's, you know, beneficial to talk about people, you know, and this is really what Jewish law is about. religion in general is about, I think, trying to figure out right from wrong. Judaism in particular is about trying to figure out right from wrong with everything. For example, like there is in Judaism, when you lie down, when you fall asleep, in Orthodoxy at least, you're supposed to not sleep on your back or on your front, sleep on your sides, and start out initially when you go to sleep, start, and I don't know if there's an exclusion for left-handed people, whatever, but basically you're supposed to start sleeping on your left side, and then, somewhere, I guess, in the middle of the night, transition to your where you're sleeping on the right side. There's ways, there's ways, you put on one shoe, put on the other shoe, whatever. There's rules about everything. And what are these rules about? Well, one, they're about how to do things in the best way, presumably. But I think the other wonderful gift of these rituals is like, they keep one constantly connected to God. There's so many blessings in Judaism. Like, you walk by a door, there's a mezuzah, you've got to kiss the mezuzah. I've got a mezuzah on my door. I don't kiss it. I don't know why. Maybe it's, I actually put it up, maybe I think around the time where the pandemic began. I'm saying, oh, let me, so, but like, no, but people who do this and do this, you have to do it with the right spirit. It's like, you go through your days completely connected with God because of all these rituals, which is very cool. All right. So I've got about a minute left. So let's return to the basic theme, the first theme I began with, that God causes circumstances and events in our life in order to move us to other circumstances and events and actions that will cause other actions. And it's like, to us, we sometimes see the plan in it, often we don't, but it's just, it's good to understand that is all God leading us to more virtue, more happiness. All right, that's all I have time for tonight. I've got 20 seconds. So catch this every Monday through Friday. I don't catch this on TV, or if you don't catch it on TV, check it out on YouTube. I will be back tomorrow to do another episode, God willing, and I hope you're having a great day. Thanks.